name is Reka Katalin Ferdinandi. This is my lovely co-host, Hanna Hollósi, and we are delighted to have you here. We sincerely hope that you are at least half as excited for today as we are. Without further ado, let us get started with the presentations. The first presenters won't just magically appear on stage. However, they will be introducing us to something that does stand to only on paper. Please welcome Vanessa Jantos, Charlotte Rizer, and Sofia Bujung from Nikolaus von Kues Gymnasium.
Could you please select yours on the laptop there? This one?
Okay, perfekt. Wir haben einen Drucker bekommen. Ja, oh nein.
Guys, look what I found! Oh, what's that? This looks quite mysterious.
Let's find out what's in it. A blank piece of paper?
But oh, there's something else in it. What's that? Oh no, a bomb.
And the timer says 5 minutes.
We have to figure out the message. But how are we gonna do this?
Maybe someone wrote with their secret ink on the paper.
Wait, I think I know some experts who can tell us something about secret ink.
Hello and welcome to a presentation about secret ink. I'm Sofia Bujung.
I am Charlotte Rizer. And my name is Vanessa Jantos, and we are from Germany.
In 2011, the CIA published documents that had been secret for decades, and these documents contain information about different secret inks and their procedure, and we tested these secret inks to find out which one's the best, and maybe we can help the agents figure out their message with our information. Let's come to our first experiment, the most famous secret ink, and I can guarantee most of you have probably heard of it because citric acid is the secret ink. Let's come to the experimental procedure. So firstly, we wrote with citric acid on a piece of paper, as you can see here in the video. And then we let the liquid dry until the message was completely faded. And when that's done, we heated the paper with a tea light to make the message visible again. And it takes a bit of a time. And you can see here how we did that, and how the letters slowly are turning brown. And here we have the before and after. The coloring can be explained by the acid, because the acid attacks the fibers of the papers, and these weakened areas react more rapidly to heat than the rest of the paper. Therefore, the letters are turning brown. Our next experiment is the oldest secret ink. It's the oldest secret ink because it was used in ancient Rome, and people used it to deliver secret love letters. And milk is the secret ink. So firstly, we wrote with milk on a piece of paper, and then we again let the liquid dry until the message is completely faded. And then we covered the paper with carbon black till our message is visible. And here you can see the results. But how does this work? The soot particles are absorbed by the proteins and fats in the dried milk, and that's why our message is visible.
Now we come to our third experiment, is the recursive ink. And you start by writing down your message, and before you can do this, you have to dissolve potassium thiosulfate in water and write down your message. And to make the message visible again, you tap your piece of paper with iron trichloride, and then your message will become seeable or visible again, and you can see before and the after. And now we have a short video of the process. There you can see how the note becomes visible. Now we come to the explanation, and because, as I told you before, you write down your message with the colorless potassium thiosulfate solution, and this will react with the iron chloride solution to aqua thiosulfate, in which you see it as this red coloring. And down here is the chemical equation of this reaction. And now we come to the little special thing about the secret ink, is that because you can reverse the ink, that means you can make it invisible again after you made it visible again. And you do this by putting your message in a plastic container and add a few drops of ammonia. Our message was too big for this little Tic Tac container, so we cut out the tea and put it in there, and you can see the tea before we added the ammonia and after we added. Now we come to this explanation, and first off you have to know that ammonia reacts alkanically. That means that pure ammonia reacts with water, and one of the end products is OH-, also known as hydroxide ion, and 3 of this OH- react with the aqua thiosulfate, and the color disappears because all of this complex reacts with each other. And just a little fun fact that aqua thiosulfate reacts to iron hydroxide. Our fourth experiment was about acidize as secret ink. This may sound a bit cryptic to you. Acidize occur in many materials like wood, paper, and also in some food like ice cream and cheese. We started with preparing our developer solution by dissolving sulfonilic acid in aqueous caustic soda and dissolving sodium nitrite in distilled water. Then we mixed both solutions together and let it cool down in ice water. And we let hydrochloric acid also cool down. Then we mix the sodium sulfonylate nitrite solution with the hydrochloric acid dropwise. It's important to mention that the temperature should not go beyond 5 degrees Celsius. And then we put the solution into a refrigerated spray bottle. The second step was to prepare the secret ink by preparing a solution out of beta-naphtol, aqueous caustic soda, and distilled water. Then we wrote our secret down with the secret ink and sprayed over it with the developer solution. Then we could read our message. Here you can see the video. Here's also a before and after picture. Let's come to the explanation. First, we parted it into two parts. The first one is the diazotization of the sulfonilic acid. A diazotization is a reduction of an amine by nitrosyl cations formed from nitric acid. When the hydrochloric acid is added dropwise to the sulfonylate nitrate solution, the sulfonilic acid is diazotized. You can see this in this picture there. The sulfonilic acid is on the left side and the diazotized version on the right. And it's also called a diazonium when it's diazotized. The second step is the adsocoupling with beta-naphtol. During the adsocoupling, the diazonium reacts with an aromat, in this case beta-naphtol, through an electrophilic substitution. You can see beta-naphtol on the right side. The p electrons of beta-naphtol attack the diazonium, which leads to the triple bond being split and a double bond being formed under separation of a proton. And this formed double bond is an adso compound. You can see it marked red there, and it's determining for the bright orange color. Our next experiment was about budget resources as secret ink. Those are the materials we used. All of you know acetic acid and maybe also bleach. We also used commonly used medicine like aspirin and iron capsules that you use if you have iron deficiency in your blood. This time we started with preparing our secret ink by pressing a pill of ASS and heating the powder with soda san and water till it boiled. Then we let it cool down again. For the developer solution, we pressed a pill of the ferrocyanide capsules, and then we put it into a test tube and mixed it with the acetic acid, and then we mixed this solution with the soda san. Then we wrote our message down again and brushed over it with the developer solution. Here you can see the before and after. We don't have a video because it took some time. Let's come to the explanation. Soda san contains sodium percarbonate, which releases hydrogen peroxide, which you can see in this equation. This hydrogen peroxide oxidizes the iron 2 ions from the ferrocyanide capsules to iron 3 ions. The acetylsalicylic acid in the ASS pill are completely deprotonated by adding soda san. Therefore, the acetylsalicylic ions are formed. The salicylate ions react with hydrogen, with hydroxide salicylate ions to salicylate ions and acetate ions, which you can see in the pictures always next to it. Those salicylate ions react with water molecules to form hydrogen bonds and delocalize the negative charge and stabilize the newly formed chelate ring under separation of an oxonium. And those salicylate ions also form with the iron 3 and iron 3 salicylate complex under separation of a proton, and this iron 3 salicylate complex is determining for the change of color. And it's this one right there.
Now let's come to our last experiment, and when we found this experiment in the CIA documents, we knew we had to include it in our presentation because the CIA called it the German formula. And let's come to the experimental procedure. So firstly, we prepared a solution of white garlic juice and alum, and with that solution we wrote on a piece of paper, and then again we let the liquid dry until the message was faded, and then we heated the paper again with a tea light to make it visible. And here you can see the result. And the brown coloring can be attributed to the decomposition products of the paper, which form when exposed to heat at the previously wetted areas, so where you wrote down with your secret ink. And because in these areas the cellulose was partially hydrolyzed by the secret ink. And as you can see in the equation, the aluminum ions act as a cationic acid.
Now we come to our comparison to find out which one is the best ink. And now in the next few pages, I'm going to show you a few categories and why we chose the places. So our first category to choose is which procedure is the fastest. And of course, we took the 3 that you can do also at home. And the first one we took as milk because you don't need any heat for this. The second and the third one I'll explain themselves because you need heat for this, but we experienced that the German formula was a little bit slower than the place number 2, and the other ones are not mentioned because they took around place from 40 to 60 minutes, so obviously they're not the fastest. Now we come to which secret ink is the most unreadable, and as I hope, or we hope, you can see on the pictures why we chose these places. As number 1, it's azodized because you can see absolutely no shadow, no letters, no nothing. In place 2, we did budget resources because you can see a slight shadow, but not as much as in place number 3, which is the ink, a secret ink. Now we come to the completely opposite, is which color is the most intense, and of course we also put on some pictures, and number 1, it's azodized because it has this really nice and intense orange. Number 2, we placed retrogressive ink because of course it has a nice coloring or a nice red, but the background is also colored and we didn't like this much to put it on the number 1. And number 3, it's of course, as I hope you can see why we chose this number 3, because you can see the letters very clearly. Now we come to our next category, it's which procedure is the least dangerous, and we chose also the 3 you can do at home because the other ones are you have to use toxic chemicals that can harm yourself or the environment. And of course we chose number 1 as milk a secret ink because you don't need heat for this, so the danger of burning yourself is really low. And we also placed the other 2 because you don't need any chemicals for these. Now we come to our overall winners, and we chose the most famous and known secret ink as number 1 because we all can do this at home and it's really least dangerous. Then we placed retrogressive ink as number 2 because it's the only ink that you can reverse, so that means that you can make it invisible after you make it visible again. And as number 3, we chose azodized because it has the most nice coloring and intense color. And this was our presentation. We hope you liked it, and we will also hope that we were able to help the agents figure out the message. And yeah, we hope you liked it.
Yes, thank you. So, yeah. Okay, so with the help of modern technology, the next 2 sets of presenters will be joining us from hundreds of kilometers away, and their presentations will be held online. Eva Akripova, Arina Bocharova, and Maya Dyalayeva from British Club Language School will be presenting on the exciting topic of body language as a means of nonverbal communication. Communication. Jó, majd akkor legközelebb előre. Jó, tudom, de majd utána járok. De legalább a nevüket jól mondtam. Fúj, a tényleg rosszabb a nevük. Hanna, nincs kedved belerakni ezt abba, hogy ne kelljen fognom végig.
Good afternoon. We would like to present our project. Our project is about emojication. Emojication is communication with emojis. The purpose of this project is to determine whether emojis can replace traditional forms of communication and to conduct an experiment to investigate this possibility. Our hypothesis is that emojis cannot be used for proper communication, but they can serve to express emotions and short phrases. The objectives of our project are to find out where the emojis came from, conduct an experiment by surveying people, and prove or disapprove the hypothesis that we have put forward. Emojis are visual symbols that convey emotions, expressions, and ideas in a concise and easily understandable way. They have become increasingly popular in digital communication due to their ability to add nuance and context to text-based messages. But the question emerges where the emojis came from. History shows that humanity has been using symbols as a means of communication for thousands of years. Let's recall drawings in caves or encrypted messages. The ancient and highly relevant phenomenon of conveying information to someone who is not physically present. Ancient people used ideograms and pictographs, which later turned into letters. With the advent of emoji, there is a return to the transmission of text through images.
The history of emoji began in 1999 when Japanese programmer Shigetaka Kurita created a set of characters for the Canon. In total, he drew 176 emojis, measuring 12 by 12 pixels, denoting people, places, and objects. As Kurita planned, it was a set of symbols that conveyed the full range of human emotions. In the digital space, it is not easy to convey shades of emotion. Technology creates limitations in size, volume, and in the absence of body language and intonation. 6 of the 10 most popular apps in the world are messengers. Users spend the most time on them. Emojis have accelerated the transfer of information. The irony is that although we have become more open and interconnected thanks to technology, it is more difficult for us to understand each other. The popularity of emoji is due to the fact that text does not always manage to convey all emotions. The popularity of emoji is such that even outside of the original meanings associated with a particular sign in Japanese culture, they are understandable all over the world. To confirm our hypothesis, we conducted an experiment. We compiled a survey of several short phrases, including 3 phrases in which the well-known names of the composition, the film, and the character were encrypted, and a really simple dialogue made up entirely of emojis. Further, we distributed these phrases to the participants and asked them to guess what is encrypted. Our experiment involved 60 people, including 32 girls and 28 boys, aged from 14 to 70 years. When we conducted the experiment, the teenagers were surprised and interested. They really liked this survey. Many of them tried very hard to get the exact encrypted answer, and they coped with the task. About 5 to 7 minutes were allocated for the survey. The participants quickly coped with the first part of the survey, but much more time was spent on the dialogue. While checking the survey results, we came across very unusual and unexpected answers that were completely wrong, but there were also many correct answers. In our opinion, it was a very exciting experience, both for the participants and for ourselves.
The results of the experiment showed that most people are able to understand any short phrases from emojis, but it's almost impossible to understand a voluminous text that consists entirely of emojis. Specifically, 82% of respondents correctly get the meaning of the short phrases, 89% for the first phrase, 60% for the second phrase, and 97% for the third phrase. However, only 54% of respondents attempt to get the dialogue and they did it incorrectly. In this way, our hypothesis has been proven. In fact, emojis enhance or clarify the meaning and context of a correspondence, replacing intonation, gestures, and facial expressions. Seems low used to convey the tone of a voice where it's impossible to imagine it. The act is emotional punctuation, adds some context, nuances, and allow interlocutors to express their thoughts without unnecessary social tension. Emojis work best with short but effective symbols. However, when transmitting real, accurate information is a convincing proposal or a speech by President, emojis are completely inappropriate. Similarly, texts consisting of solely of emojis are often unclear because different people interpret the meanings of emojis differently. So now, thank you for your attention.
Okay. Okay, so this was the presentation of Oskolkov Kirill, Plashnikova Polina, and Denyaya Maivey, the students of British Club Language School, on the power of emojis in the communication.
Yes. And now comes the presentation of Eva Akripova, Arina Bocharova, and Maya Yalayeva from British Club Language School, also online, on body language as a means of nonverbal communication. Thank you.
So, are we going to start?
Okay, you can go ahead.
Okay, thank you. You may start.
Hello. Today we would like to present you our research on the topic of body language as means of communication.
Body language implies various kinds of body movements that accompany a person's speech in the process of communication and express their attitude directly to the interlocutor or to an event. However, one may argue that in this fast-paced world of high-tech communication, body language is not paid enough attention to and not always used to nature. This study focuses on the way teenagers subconsciously use their body language to convey their mood, behavior, and inner state which can't be changed on purpose. We want to gain a better understanding of how external influence can change the way we walk and move. The purpose of work is demonstrate and explore the possibilities of sign language as a way of non-verbal communication between people. Hypothesis: you can express your feelings and thoughts non-verbal without using words, and at the same time be understandable by people. In order to achieve the goal, is necessary to complete a number of tasks. The study won't exactly makes the body language sign language, body movement and gait in particular. To conduct the survey to understand to what extent teenagers understand body language. To learn the way to understand sign language, to find out how teenagers use sign language and their attitude to it. Let's start by defining what body language is. Body language is a number of sign elements of posture and movement of various body parts. with the help of which thoughts, feelings, and emotions are consciously or unconsciously transmitted in the process of interpersonal communication. Or in simple words, it is a non-verbal way of communication. For example,
Facial expressions are movements of facial muscles that are associated with a person's emotion. Facial expressions help other people understand the interlocutor state of mind. Facial muscles movements are individual to each person, but nevertheless have similar features. Expression of the emotion of joy is a smile, eyes slightly closed, fine lines appear in the corner. Anger broadens eyebrows, the color of eye becomes deeper, stiff upper lip. Expressions of sadness are not always tears. Most often the outer corners of the lips are lowered, eye dimmed. Movements help us to understand each other as they're an important part of body language. For many people, movements are more understandable than gaits. Learning to understand other people's gestures can be useful, not only for getting in contact with other people, but also for creating strong business, friendship, and romantic relationship.
Gait. For the most people, understanding gaits is a very difficult task. Different gait is a sign of a person, different condition, lifestyle, or more precisely the degree of physical activity. If a person doesn't exercise at all, over the years he or she develops a slouch that persists even while moving. However, what is even more interesting, gait not only reflects our physical well-being and the presence of various pathologies, but also our psycho-emotional state. For example, a quick gait, sign of straightforwardness, slow gait, caution, worry, and self-care. To do research into importance and usage of body language, we conducted a survey with 15 participants. The age of participants under the study was from 11 to 15 years old. To conduct the survey, we needed a projector screen to show videos with the gait and photos of people using body language to communicate ideas. Students were given answer sheets to mark their answers. The main problem was that the older students could easily identify the emotion expressed by gait, movement, or facial expression, while the younger students found it difficult.
in the first part of the survey, students were shown 10 different gaits of the person. The rules were simple. Students had to choose the emotion or state from the list. It was possible to choose several options. After that, they had to write the answer on a sheet of paper. Also, after the first part of the survey, we asked the students a question. What helped you choose the correct answer? The large proportion of the students said they were helped by gait, emotion, facial expression, and gestures. In the second part of the survey, they were shown pictures of people communication using body language, like facial expression and body movements. The rules were the same. Students had to write the correct answer on a sheet of paper. We also asked students the same question at the end of the survey. What helped you choose the right answer to the questions? The answer were the same as in the first part of the survey. We found that a large proportion of students in the first part of the survey could identify a person's mood by their gait correctly. For example, determine the person is worried, in a good mood, or interested. So we can say that these emotions were easy for students, but there was significant amount of students who could not identify a person's mood by their gait. For example, when a person was confused, busy, or nervous student, they found it difficult to choose.
After the results of the first part of the survey, we can conclude that it's easier and faster for people to recognize a good emotions. For example, when a person is in a good mood or inspired by something. But more negative emotions are recognized by a person longer and more difficult than positive ones. For example, when a person is nervous or just in a bad mood. Also, it's worth noting that each person understands and sees each emotions a little bit differently. So it's absolutely normal that each person had a different opinion about each video in the poll. After the results of the second part of the survey, we can assume that a significant amount of students spotted correctly such emotions as nervousness, lying, confidence, disgust, genuine smile, closed-off position. Whereas a large proportion of students found it hard to identify the posture of mutual respect, anger, and sincerity.
A great part of the students answered the question correctly. Therefore, we found that they use the same body language to express their feelings. It can be noted that students don't pay attention to the direction of their feet or then a person lies. His eyes are turned to the right and so on. From this, we can conclude that psychologically we can understand a person's emotion by facial expressions, gait, and passive by the tone of voice, but this was not considered in our project. At the end of the survey, we found that students found it difficult to determine a person's mood from their speed and gait, as there were very different opinions. In addition, we found out which emotions are difficult to perceive and understand. After the survey, we also realized that the communication to people look at the position of a person's eyes and how he or she behaves when lying. What is also important is where we realized is that everyone understands any emotion, gesture, gait, or facial expression differently. That's why most of the answers in our survey were different.
After the survey, it was necessary to conduct a series of workshops to get students closer to understanding the body language. It's consisted of three parts. In the first part, students were divided into teams, and afterwards we all discussed the survey we had done earlier together. Students tried to explain their choices. In the second part, we conducted the first experiment. The rules were simple. Students choose the card with the type of emotion. Then they had to mime the emotion on card using gestures, emotion, and gait. And the teams had to guess with the emotion to students was showing. After that, students had to discuss the group and then speak out loud about their choices. After the first experiment, we realized that the way a person shows a gesture, emotion, gait depends on the character and type of person. For example, if a person is very shy and modest in real life, then most likely he will not be able to show the given emotion naturally, while a person who is open and sociable will show the same emotion more naturally and openly.
The third experience was a dialogue between two students. We also gave them a card with a dialogue written on it. The first one about the student and the teacher, and the second one about the shop assistant and the customer. The students had to read the dialogues and then mime them using only facial expressions, gestures, and gait. They could not speak. Then their teams had to decide on topic of the dialogue, who was speaking and what kinds of emotion they expressed. After two experiments, we found out that for older students, the dialogue between the shop assistant and the customer was easy to perform, while for young students, the same dialogue was much more difficult. This implied that people usually start to understand and use body language more in older age. So our conclusion is that the concept of body language most often comes with age.
At the end of the masterclass, students were asked for feedback in form of question. How is body language important in your life?
In my opinion, it doesn't matter because I can express my opinion in words.
I think that is important because it becomes more interesting and understandable to talk to people who use gesture emotions when talking.
Do you use it in your life?
Probably yes. For example, to help friends with the help of gestures during the test.
Yes, if the person can't hear, you can use gesture to explain information.
No, I can use words. It's easier for me. Is it easy to spot?
For me, it's easy to understand because when a person speaks, he uses both facial expressions, emotions, gestures, and gait at the same time.
I'm used to understanding a person with the help of words, so it's very difficult to understand what a person is saying with gestures, gait, or emotions.
After studying the material in detail and testing the practice, we can say that body language is necessary in the life of every person. Its more consciously understanding comes with age. When a child starts to get into more complicated situations, he or she solves them indiscipline and uses body language without realizing it. For better understanding of emotion, people most often use facial expression. So we can conclude that understanding human facial expression is an easier task for human, and gait movement, hands posture, tone of voice are also often used but are more difficult to understand. Also, judging on the students' opinion, we found out that in order to understand emotion, we need to behave naturally. Then the expression of emotion will be true-lived and more sincere for the interlocutor. Thank you for your attention.
Okay, and now we'll hold a 15-minute break. Please be back at 9:15 so we can continue with the presentations. Akkor csapassunk le a kabátunkért. Anna Öseblö, Jenny Scherholt, and Elisabeth Sisner from Arendal Videregående Skole will hopefully elaborate on this exciting topic.
Hello, my name is Sarah. I'm Jenny.
And I'm Nina.
Welcome to our presentation about caffeine, the magical potion.
So caffeine is found in several foods and drinks that we all love, such as Coca-Cola and Nutella. However, it's only naturally present in coffee beans, tea leaves, cocoa beans, and guarana, which is actually the one with the highest content of caffeine. The chemical name is trimethylxanthine, and it is composed by carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, and oxygen. It has several effects on the central nervous system, leading to, for example, increased heart rate and behavioral disorders such as lack of impulse control, restlessness and aggressiveness, especially in children when consumed in larger doses. But it also has positive effects such as increased concentration and performance, which is our focus for this project.
The feeling of tiredness comes from the substance adenosine, and the fact that so many people depend on caffeine to get up in the morning is not without reason, as caffeine counteracts adenosine. When you consume caffeine, it takes the place of adenosine and therefore obstructs the effect of the substance. And as you can see here, adenosine is almost like a key which fits into a keyhole in your brain. And over time, you might develop a sort of tolerance to the effect, which causes it to not work properly. And because of this, you can see that children often have a greater effect of caffeine than adults. And because of this, many countries have chosen to have restrictions on how old you have to be to buy caffeinated beverages. And the professions where the workers drink the most caffeine are, amongst others, scientists, authors, doctors, and social workers. And social workers are also some of the people who get the least amount of sleep, which indicates that there indeed is a connection between sleep and the intake of caffeine. Okay, so I have two questions for you guys, and you can just raise your hand if the answer is yes. So, how many of you need caffeine or coffee to get up in the morning and get to work or whatever? Okay, that's a few people. And how many of you sleep less than 6 hours a night? Just raise your hand again. That was even more. So the connection between these two answers are exactly what we wanted to research in our project. And caffeine is one of the most widely consumed stimulants in the world, and Norway is actually known to be a nation of coffee lovers. In fact, we score second place in the world for which population has the most intake of caffeine per inhabitant. So, to many, caffeine might seem like some sort of a magical potion to fix your poor sleeping habits. And as a result, we wanted to test if there really is a relation between sleeping patterns and the reaction to caffeine. And therefore, our problem statement was, in what ways does caffeine affect the responsiveness of people in two different groups based on sleeping patterns? So this is just a little presentation of our groups. We have group 1 here, which is the tired SpongeBob, so the people who sleep less than 6 hours a night. And then we have group 2, which are the people who sleep more than 7 hours a night, so happy and energetic SpongeBob. So our hypothesis was that the second group would improve the reaction time the most, and that there would be an influence of placebo.
So all participants start by taking a control test before they receive their drink. Then after consuming their drink, they wait for 30 minutes because it takes about 30 to 45 minutes before the caffeine reaches its peak effect. And then lastly, they take the test again. And so since we are specifically testing caffeine, we did this procedure twice. One day with vitamin tablets to test for any placebo effects, and one day with the actual caffeine to see the actual effects of caffeine. And these two tests were performed at the same time of the day on 2 different days, as you tend to lose concentration the further into the day you get. So to do this project, we used vitamin effervescent tablets for the placebo test, that one, and then we used caffeine effervescent tablets for the actual caffeine test, where the dosage we gave mimicked the content of an energy drink. And then to test their reaction time, we used an online test called cpscheck.com. And yeah, it's a video here showing how you use it. I'm not sure how it's... Okay, there. So you just wait for the sign there, and then you click as fast as you can. And that's basically the test they did. So to systematically collect the data, each participant received a form where they could fill in their amount of sleep and their results. We did each test 5 times, so that where we took the average of these to get a more accurate measure of their reaction.
Yeah, and here you can see the results from the control test. This diagram shows how many hours of sleep the participants got in accordance to their reaction time. And as you can see, the dotted line is a trend line, and it shows that there isn't necessarily a connection between how many hours you sleep and how fast your reaction time is. And in this diagram, you see the change of reaction time after the intake of caffeinated effervescent tablets. And positive values show improvement, while negative values show that they spent a longer time to react. And as you can see, the line is tilted, and the people who got more sleep showed positive results, which means that they improved their results and reacted faster, while the average of the people who slept less worsened their results.
And this is just a little diagram showing the change of reaction time in %. So you can see the sleepy people had a negative number, which means that they actually worsened the results from the control test to after the intake of caffeine, while the people who got 7 hours or more, so happy and energetic SpongeBob, got better results with 3%. So they did 3% better from the control test to after the intake of caffeine. So, what else should you do if you try out this project? There are a few areas of improvement which could be beneficial if any of you were to try this project. Firstly, it's important to have a bit more control over the intake of caffeine, of the participants' intake of caffeine before the test, as it makes your results seem a bit more credible. And testing more people would also definitely be an advantage, as our 30-ish people definitely aren't enough to conclude anything. And in addition, biological differences such as disorders like ADHD might cause some people to have different reactions to caffeine. And I would also like to add that it's really important to be aware that the effervescent tablets, so the caffeine tablets, mixed with water, is a slightly more foamy drink than one would think. So be careful.
So our hypothesis says that the group with the longest amount of sleep, which is 7 hours or more, would experience the most significant effects from caffeine, which is indicated by our results. However, it is likely due to the lower tolerance they have to caffeine, as they are not as accustomed to drinking caffeine as the group with the least amount of sleep, which is 6 hours or less. We did a survey in our class where those people who slept less, we found out that they drink caffeine quite commonly or very often, whilst those who slept longer didn't really drink much caffeine. And therefore we see that the group with the least amount of sleep has probably gotten a higher tolerance towards caffeine. And so therefore we cannot conclude that our hypothesis is correct, as it is how accustomed you are towards caffeine rather than how much you sleep that influences the effects you get from caffeine, as well as the fact that we have tested way too few people to actually get a representative result.
However, we can conclude that the people who sleep more show better results. So therefore, fix your sleeping habits. Yeah.
Okay, so Taja Svetlik and Jana Stojkic from Gimnasia Juria Vega Idrija conducted research on pigments, and what's more, they even created their own crayons using only natural ones. Let's welcome them to this stage.
Hi, my name is Taya and this is Jana, and today we will be presenting pigments. We chose pigments as the theme because people used to communicate with paintings on cave walls, and thus the theme of this year's YRoNS conference led us to pigments and making our own crayons. Pigments are insoluble chemical compounds in a solid aggregate state that reflect only certain wavelengths of visible light. They appear colored due to selective absorption and reflection of light. The colors that are reflected form the color seen by the human eye. In industry and art, pigments are insoluble solid substances that are usually used in powder form together with binders, such as oils and glues, and other ingredients, for example, water. In biology, a pigment is any substance that absorbs certain wavelengths of light while simultaneously giving color to plant or animal cells. These are, for example, chlorophyll, keratin, anthocyanins, hemoglobin, etc. In plants, there can only be some pigment colors. These are green, yellow, and red. Most common is chlorophyll, which is present in all green plants. Pigments have been used since prehistoric times. Paintings of bulls, bison, and other animals were found in the cave of Altamira. They were painted in white, red, black, and yellow tones. Those colors, along with brown, were the first pigments, most likely because they are colors found in nature. They can be found in coal, limestone, and soil. These were mixed together with various binders, such as urine, blood, bone marrow, animal fats, and others. People painted with their fingers or with simple brushes, and in some places they already made crayons. Later, people also began using clay, sticky, drying juices of various plants, lime, and wax. Oil began to be used only in the 15th century. Later, the Egyptians also obtained metallic red color from gold and silver mines, yellow from arsenic, bright green from copper compounds, the brightest white from corroded lead compounds, and blue. During this period, several blue colors were developed, namely ancient Roman blue, ancient Greek blue, and ancient Egyptian blue. To create the Egyptian blue color, we need limestone and sand minerals that contain copper. Egyptian colors were more resistant as the paints made in prehistoric times. This is proven by a plate from 4th century BC, which was found by scientists. By the beginning of the 20th century, countless pigments had been discovered. In addition to those already listed, newly discovered pigments are sienna, ochre, umbra, and many others.
According to their formation, pigments are divided into inorganic, in which we distinguish between natural and artificial or mineral pigments, and organic, which are also divided into natural and artificial. Inorganic pigments are composed of minerals such as titanium oxide and other non-living materials. This type is known for its bright colors, and they are highly resistant to discoloration and fading. These pigments are also non-toxic and safe for all-purpose use. One of the advantages is their stability, as they don't react with other materials and aren't affected by heat, light, and other factors. Organic pigments are built on a carbon base. They are known for their vibrant and bright colors that are used in many products, including plastics and inks. One of their main strengths is their versatility, so we can easily change them to other shades. And organic pigments are also more soluble than inorganic ones, so they're easier to dissolve in other materials. However, they are more prone to fading and less stable, and can also be affected by light and heat. As we already said, we distinguish between natural and artificial pigments. Natural ones are from natural sources, while artificial ones are created through chemical reactions. Due to extraction, we also notice a difference in price, since natural ones are significantly more expensive due to the difficulty of production. The differences can also be found in the color palette. For example, artificial ones have a wider range of colors, so they're often used for industrial purposes, while natural ones, which have a limited range of colors, are mostly used in traditional ways. The production of synthetic pigments is more widespread, as it has a smaller environmental footprint, but these pigments can be extremely toxic, while natural ones are much safer to use. Inorganic pigments are mainly processed by filtration, silting, crushing, sedimentation, drying, and selection, with which we want to obtain the purest color and finely ground grains. Artificial ones are obtained by chemical reactions. These include many dehydrated earth pigments, and natural organic pigments are obtained from animal and organic organisms by heating the dye or by fixing the dye on the substrate, while artificial organic pigments are obtained by complex chemical processes.
Pigments in cosmetics are used to color hair and to add color to makeup products, for example, in the production of eyeshadows and lipsticks. Certain pigments can be applied to natural hair, already colored hair or bleached hair, and they can be used to add tones or eliminate unwanted tones. Fruits, especially fruits and vegetables, are naturally colored mainly by 4 groups of pigments. These are included in food either by direct addition or indirectly through animal feed. Pigments are used to make our own paints: oil paints, acrylic paints, watercolor paints, and crayons in different shades. In addition, pigments can be used to change the intensity of already existing colors. To create these colors, we need to bind the pigments with binders. Binders are sticky, drying, greasy and non-greasy, waxy or resinous substances. Simple binders that we use in everyday life are milk, egg yolks, resin, wax, and many others. Today, we use some new natural binders. One of these is gum arabic, which is used in the creation of watercolor paints. It is obtained from a plant, sub-Saharan acacia. In addition to painting, pigments are also used for painting houses and walls, and they are used in ink for writing and printing.
For our experiment, we decided to make our own natural pigments and then use them in crayons, which we also made ourselves. We made pigments from different types of food and activated charcoal. We firstly had to boil the vegetables, dry them, and then ground them into a fine powder. We obtained green from spinach, purplish gray from red cabbage, brownish red from beetroot, yellow from turmeric, and black from activated charcoal. We then used them to make crayons from coconut butter and carnauba wax, which we mixed in a ratio of 2:3 and then added powdered pigment as desired.
The course of the experiment was not as easy as we initially imagined, as we encountered several obstacles. The first problem arose from the very beginning when the vegetables refused to be ground into a fine powder, so it took us longer than expected to obtain the pigments. Our other problem came when the pigments didn't want to completely mix with the crayon base, which we made, but luckily it all worked out in the end as they mixed together well enough to give color to the crayons. Upon further research, we conclude that there are quite a few things that could be improved. As a solution to our first problem, we could have used a grinder instead of our hands, and for our second problem, we could have added glycerol so the pigments would have bound better with the base. That was our presentation. Thank you for your attention.
I think we can all agree that food waste is a devastating problem that needs to be addressed. Dear Vanshi Vyas from Amity International Schools might just have the answer. She will be introducing us to a brilliant innovation, the fruit ripeness detector. Please welcome her to the stage.
Good morning, everyone. Before I start my presentation, I would like to pose a question to everyone. Have you ever thrown out a fruit because it looked inedible? I know I have. If you look at this fruit, you would think that it's rotten, but when you look at the inside, you could see that it's actually perfectly fine. So one shouldn't judge a book by its cover. I am Devanshi Vyas of Amity International School, India, and this is exactly why I've created Ripen Ready, a fruit ripeness detection kit on the basis of its pH level, acting as a signal to the consumer with the aim to prevent food wastage. The visionaries and our guiding light, respected chairperson, Dr. Mrs. Amita Chauhan ma'am, and respected founder president, Dr. Ashok K. Chauhan sir, have always inspired me to research in the field of natural sciences and to scientifically solve day-to-day problems. I would also like to extend my gratitude to respected director of the Amity Educational Resource Center, Mrs. Jyoti Arora ma'am, respected director principal, Mrs. Renu Singh ma'am, and respected mentor, Mrs. Manju Tripathi ma'am, for always showing me the way and believing in me. My presentation will include the problem statement, what is Ripen Ready, the testing stage, and the future prospects of my project. The problem statement, deterioration in nutritional value of fruits due to premature or late consumption. Unripe and overripe fruits often don't provide us with the same amount of energy that ripe fruits do. Shortly after harvesting, unripe fruits begin to lose moisture and therefore have a greater risk of spoilage and deterioration in nutritional value. Unripe and overripe fruits can also cause a number of health problems, as at times they may contain chemicals which are harmful for human beings if consumed. Ripen Ready also helps prevent food wastage, as it tells the consumer when their fruit is ready to eat. So, let me explain to you what is Ripen Ready. As I mentioned earlier, Ripen Ready is a fruit ripeness detection kit on the basis of its pH level. It is made up of two major components, the pH testing strips themselves and the reference charts, which help one to easily make sense of what is meant by the readings of the pH strips. It is based on the scientific principle of the correlation of a fruit and its ripeness, and that the pH level of a fruit increases throughout the ripening process. Meaning that if the pH level of a fruit is between 3 to 5, then in most cases it is edible. But if it is below 3 or above 5, then we cannot eat it. As you can see here, the pH strips turn a shade of dark orange when in contact with unripe fruits, and light orange or a yellowish color when in contact with overripe fruits. helping one to easily find out the pH level of their fruit and thus its edibleness. The testing stage. During the testing process, I tested the pH levels of 6 fruits. Can you guess the fruits I tested? Well, if you guessed oranges, apples, bananas, papayas, chikus or sapodillas, or guavas, then you are absolutely correct, my friend. As you can see here, the pH level of all 6 fruits increased throughout the ripening process. I have also done acid titration of various fruits to find its acidity level and thus its edibleness. The future prospects of my project. In the future, I plan to bring my project forward and make an electronic pH tester, which would help make Ripen Ready even more compact and portable for efficient use in homes and commercial settings. Finally, I would like to end my presentation with a quote by Thomas Keller: "Respect for food is respect for life, for who we are and what we do." I would like to thank everyone who watched my presentation, with special thanks to Mr. Istvan Sandor sir, along with the organizers of YRoNS 2024, for providing us with such a wonderful platform and enlightening experience. Thank you everyone and good day.
It is possible to turn trash into treasure. Let the presenters from Nikolaus von Kuhs Gymnasium, Ben Kaps, Jonas Koch and Noan Kropp answer this question for us. Please welcome them to the stage.
Nein. Once upon a time, in a village far, far away, there were 2 friends drinking wine at home, which they got from a friend who lives in Andel. Time went by, and they kept drinking until the bottle was empty, but their desire wasn't satisfied, so they wanted more. They were going to buy new bottles of wine, but after a close look at their wallets, they realized that they don't have any money. But one got an idea as he looked at the label of the wine, being the Andel Gold Treasure, which is famous for its gold stream, and the 2 were ready to go find gold. At the stream in Andel, they didn't find gold, but a piece of trash, and they were really excited about it. Maybe they really found gold? Well, did we find gold? I am Noah.
Ben. And Jonas.
And we are from the Nikolaus von Kuhs Gymnasium in Germany, and today we are going to show you how you can make your trash to treasure. Now, we did that by recycling e-waste to gold. Now, some of you might ask, what is e-waste? E-waste is the short form of electronical waste, and you can find it in almost every device used for communication systems, like your PC, smartphone, smartwatch, or even your computer. Now, for our experiments, we used RAM modules, which I will show you shortly the structure. As you can see here, at the bottom of the module, there's a gold-plated contact strip, and below the strip we have copper. Now, gold is used because it has a very good electrical conductivity, so it provides stable communications between the individual components, for example, between the RAM module and your mainboard. And copper is used because it has the lowest electrical resistance, so it's used as a conductor in this case.
At first, we prepared our collected RAMs. That means we separate the interfaces. To dissolve the copper and separate the gold, we mix 25 milliliters of concentrate hydrochloric acid and 25 milliliters of hydrogen peroxide. In the first video, you can see how we pour the solution over the gold-plated contacts. At the end, you can see that some smoke coming out of the flask. In the second video, you can see the solution now has a green color and bubbles rise to the surface. Now, we come to the theory behind it. There's a redox reaction between hydrogen peroxide and copper. Copper donates the 2 electrons to the hydrogen peroxide and the hydronium to create water and copper ions. Hydrogen peroxide is a strong oxidizing agent, so it's more likely to react with copper than with gold. All because gold has a much lower oxidization potential than copper. Then we come back to our solution, which we left resting for 7 days, and filtered it. After we filtered it once, you can see some residues of the gold in the flask. We repeated the filtration process until all the gold is filtered. After this, we tried the filter paper and the gold. As the result of our extraction, we had a final weight of 0.111 grams. The estimated price of our gold would be €8, 3,144 forint, 93.5 Norwegian kroner, or 712 Indian rupees. The cost of our chemicals we used is around €0.5.
Now, even we technically gained money from this extraction, we would not recommend you to do this at home because the real price of your chemicals will be higher than the price of your gold you get. But if you start planning or opening a company for recycling e-waste, this can definitely be profitable for you, because if we compare it to the mining industry, for example here, as you can see, 1 ton of rock contains about 8 to 12 grams of gold. Meanwhile, 1 ton of e-waste contains about 300 to 400 grams of gold. And if you take into the account the payment of workers and the heavy machinery you need to dig the gold out of the earth, simply recycling the already used gold is way more efficient and definitely more profitable. Now, other reasons to recycle e-waste, of course, this recycled e-waste will be reusable resources and thus also help protect the environment. And another very important point is to reduce the dependency on raw materials, because we all know all materials and elements on Earth are limited, so we should reuse our resources as often as we can. Now, furthermore, we turned our gold into gold nanoparticles. And a nanoparticle is usually in size of 1 to 100 nanometers, while a nanometer is 1 billionth of a meter. Gold nanoparticles are very reactive because of their big surface, and they are able to absorb light. Now, depending on their size, small nanoparticles, for example, so nanoparticles smaller than 20 nanometers, will absorb blue light and reflect red light, and nanoparticles that are bigger than 20 nanometers will absorb the red light and reflect the blue light. And if you make these nanoparticles even bigger, then we're not talking about nanoparticles anymore, and they will gain their golden color back. Now, also, as you can see here in this image, gold nanoparticles have very different shapes and forms. For example, we have the nanosphere or the nanocluster, and all those kind of structures have different characteristics. Now, where are those gold nanoparticles used? They are mostly used in the medicine sector, especially for tumor diagnosis and treatment, and as you can see here, for pregnancy tests. And even the Romans used gold nanoparticles to turn their glass red without even knowing that those gold nanoparticles existed. They are sometimes used in touchscreen components, for example, this whiteboard. And sometimes they are used as a reaction partner for mercury in the atmosphere. Now, since we have some Slovenians here, I believe, could you just raise your hand if you're from Slovenia? In Istria, there are big mercury mines, and if, for example, there's a leak of mercury, those gold nanoparticles can be used so the mercury won't harm anybody.
So there's a way to produce those nanoparticles out of tetrachlorogold-3 acid. For this, we used 20 milligrams of our extracted gold and aqua regia. That's the mixture of hydrochloric acid and nitric acid, and it's able to dissolve many metals, including gold. So we added 15 drops of our hydrochloric acid and 5 drops of nitric acid to the gold. In this video, you can see how the gold is slightly dissolving when you look here at the bottom. The gold reacts with the aqua regia into tetrachlorogold-3 acid, nitrogen dioxide, and water. Since there are still a few parts of the RAM board in the solution, we filtered and washed it to maximize our amount of the acid. With the help of heat, we evaporated the water we used before, and the solid material was formed. Now we made a solution with the solid before, and the next step was to synthesize gold nanoparticles out of the solution. To achieve this, we treated the solution with a propane burner. So as you can see, the solution turns purple. This is elemental gold, but this time in form of gold nanoparticles. The reason for this is a chemical reaction. By the carbon monoxide of the propane burner, the tetrachlorogold-3 acid is reduced to elemental gold. The carbon monoxide oxidizes to carbon dioxide. To prove that these are really gold nanoparticles, you can do the Tyndall effect by using a laser pointer. It's used because the nanoparticles can scatter the light, so they are visible, like in this picture here. This won't work in normal daylight because the wavelength of the daylight is higher and the nanoparticles completely absorb the light. In contrast to that, the laser pointer's light, the wavelength of it is around 470 nanometers, and the nanoparticles can't absorb the light. So in this picture right here, you can see the difference between distilled water and our nanoparticles. As you can see, this red line is our laser, which is visible. So that is our proof that we formed gold nanoparticles.
Now, to the end, I'll give you a short outlook on the future of recycling e-waste. Now, e-waste does not only contain gold or copper, but also so-called rare earth elements, as you can see here in the periodic table. They are very expensive and very limited on our Earth, because obviously they are rare earth elements. And they are very vital for the economy worldwide, because if we ran out of those rare earth elements, that would be very critical for our economy, because we need them to produce every kind of electronic and communication devices. So, but luckily there are new experimental procedures in development to extract those rare earth elements out of e-waste. And one example would be neodymium, as you can see here. This will be also dissolved by chemicals, and neodymium is mostly used in loudspeakers, but also as magnets. So yeah, that's it. I hope you liked our presentation, and I hope you learned something. And the next time you go home, you can maybe check if you have some e-waste lying around and bring it to a recycling depot so you can do something good for the environment. Thank you for your attention.
Okay, in the next presentation, Ashrid Das, a student from Amity International Schools, will guide us through the wondrous world of smart barricade systems. Let's get right to it.
Namaste. Greetings everyone, I'm Ashitas from Amity, India. Before beginning my project, I would like to thank Chairperson Ma'am, Dr. Mrs. Amita Chauhan Ma'am, Founder Sir, Dr. Ashok K. Chauhan Sir, our Principal Ms. Minu Kanwa Ma'am, Jyoti Arora Ma'am, and my mentors, Ms. Manju Tripathi ma'am and Nivedita Datta ma'am, for giving me this golden opportunity to present my science project. Road accidents are biggest threat to human life, and as per WHO, it causes approximately 1.2 million deaths each year. As a conscientious global citizen, I have addressed this serious issue of road safety through my project Traffic Light with Smart Barricades based on the theme Communication, Signs and Signals. This system has a two-way traffic system with smart barricades based on AIoT technology, that is artificial intelligence integrated with Internet of Things technology, and use of Arduino Uno microcontroller, servo motors, LED lights for traffic. The idea is simple, to put up smart barriers which will descend when traffic light is red and go back to its original position when there is green light, facilitating transportation safety. This will also boost smart city mission. With the same logic, a four-way traffic system can also be designed. I have also shown the smooth passage of emergency vehicles like ambulance, fire brigade, police van, etc., so that they could able to reach their destination on time without any delay. I have used hydraulic system and with the help of syringes and water so that they could able to show the smooth passage of emergency vehicles. So here, this is the problem. Wait a second. Yeah, so this is the problem and this is the solution. And this is it is the project, and this is the model. And this is the flow chart. As you can see, there are 3 traffic signal lights, red, yellow, and green. So when the traffic signal is red, then the barricade is closed. When it is yellow, and then it will check for emergency vehicles. If yes, then open. If no, then closed. Now, same with yellow, and in green, it will be opened. Now let's come to the presentation part. Due to the travel restrictions, I cannot able to bring my prototype with me, so I have made a video of it. Please have a look. Greetings everyone. I have designed this two-way traffic system. Here I have used Arduino Uno microcontroller, which is a combination of hardware and open source software. This is the breadboard, which is like a PCB, where we have connected the wires by inserting their terminals into these holes. These are solderless. We have also used 3 LED lights, red, yellow and green, to show the traffic lights. These are the servo motors, also known as electromechanical device, which gets an electric signal to create mechanical movement or vice versa. In this model, the signal is changing every 7 seconds and the servo motors rotate accordingly, changing the position of the barricades. Let's say the vehicle is coming this way, and when the traffic signal is red, the barricade is closes completely for it, and while it is green, the barricade is lifted, allowing the movement of the vehicle. Now let's come to the emergency vehicle part. Here I have shown the raised footpath, and with the help of hydraulic system I am showing smooth passage of emergency vehicles like ambulance, fire brigade, police van, etc. Let's say this is an emergency vehicle which is stuck in a traffic. So for that, so what will happen? This raised footpath will come down to the same level of the road, and the emergency vehicle will pass without any hurdle. I have used syringes filled in water for demonstrating the mechanism. Let's show it once again. That's all. Thank you. Greetings, everyone. That's all about my prototype. Now, there are many advantages like smooth passage of emergency vehicles, and I would say other many things like reducing. There are the future aspects also. The future aspects also, they are reduced energy consumption, smart city integration, and many other things like autonomous vehicles and AI-driven traffic management systems, etc. With sorry about the advantages, I would say. It was I little forgot it. Sorry for that. And at last, I would like to thank Ishwan sir and the organizers of YRoNS 2024 for giving me this golden opportunity. Thank you for your time.
The topic of the following presentation may be important to all us. Ishan Garg from Amity International School will be telling us all about accident prevention with the help of advanced warning system.
Namaste. Good morning, everyone. I am Ishan Garg from Amity International School, India. First of all, I would like to thank our respected founder president, Dr. Ashok K. Chauhan ji, and our respected chairperson, Dr. Mrs. Amita Chauhan ma'am, for providing me this opportunity to be a part of YRoNS Conference 2024. I have developed a prototype on accident prevention on mountainous roads along with speed breaker power generation. Are we all aware of what has happened here? Head-on collisions on such blind turns can be deadly. These accidents are caused due to limited visibility of the other side of the road due to a sharp bend. Also, another root cause of such accidents can be inadequate lighting. Drivers face a major problem in analyzing the upcoming path during the night time. In fact, such accidents are responsible for over 1.2 million deaths worldwide every year. To mitigate this problem, the solution contains two parts. Firstly, the advanced warning systems. This model has been developed for a situation where one car is coming from each side of a U-shaped road. Here, a motion sensor will be placed on one side of the road. As soon as it will detect the motion of a car in front of it, it will activate a red light as well as a buzzer which has been placed on the opposite side. These signals are used to indicate the driver on the opposite side that a car is already coming from the other side, so that the driver can stop and make way for the other driver to easily pass through, and thus preventing head-on collisions. There will also be two signboards, one on each side about 50 meters from the blind turn, informing the drivers about the placement of this mechanism. This system is very beneficial as it provides a much better reaction time than the convex mirror that are usually used. Now, to mitigate the problem of inadequate lighting, the second solution is generating electricity through a speed breaker. Here, a complex mechanism would be placed beneath the hump of a speed breaker. As soon as a car will move above the hump of a speed breaker, this rack will be pushed down and thus rotating this pinion. This converts the linear motion of the car into a rotatory motion. This motion is being transferred via a pulley drive into a flywheel. The function of the flywheel is to store the kinetic energy of the vehicle and to make it uniform. This helps the shaft on which the flywheel has been mounted to rotate with a certain RPM. And thus, the kinetic energy reaches a generator or the dynamo where it is converted into electrical energy. Now, this electrical energy has a continuous supply and can be used for various purposes like powering the lights on the hilly areas. Because it has a continuous supply, the electricity would also be generated during the daytime. So to prevent the unnecessary generation of electricity in the daylight, a daylight sensor would be connected directly to the generators, and thus only making this mechanism functionable in the absence of daylight. Coming on to the future plans, I would be... There are two ideas. I would be now presenting the working of my prototype via a video. There are two ideas in one model, the advanced warning systems and the speed breaker power generation. In the advanced warning systems, an IR sensor has been placed on one side of the road. As soon as it will detect the motion of a car in front of it, it will activate the red light as well as a buzzer to indicate the car on this side that a car is already coming from the opposite side, so that this car can stop and make way for the other car to pass through easily, and thus preventing head-on collisions. For the speed breaker power generation, instead of using the rack and pinion mechanism, I have showcased this working using a gear motor. Whenever I spin the gear motor, it will rotate with a certain RPM and thus generating electricity to power this white street light. Coming on to the future plans, I will be incorporating weather sensors to provide additional information to the drivers regarding the road surface conditions and also visibility in foggy areas. Secondly, I will be forming a dedicated research and development team to stay updated on the technologies being developed regarding the same issue. This model maintains a safe and easy to go roadways on the hilly areas. I would like to conclude by a quote, "Curve safe, illuminating the peaks and securing the valleys." Thank you, and special thanks to the head of Amity Educational Resource Center, Ms. Jyoti Arora ma'am, my principal, Ms. Reina Krishnatre ma'am, my mentors, Ms. Manju Tripathi ma'am and Ms. Panchali ma'am, and to Ishtavan sir and the organizing body of YRoNS. Thank you.
Okay, so this concludes our presentations for today. Since we still have some time on our hands, now we will move into a spontaneous Q&A session, during which you will be able to ask questions regarding the topics of today's presentations on up.yrons.org. So to my understanding, the curtains will be drawn and then the questions will be projected there for everyone to see. I believe I will read out the questions and then I will pass on the mic to the presenters so that they can give their answers. Yes. So now with the help of our wonderful tech team, we are going to set things up and then we'll get right into the questions. Thank you. Ábel, akkor felolvasom a kérdéseket, jó? Okay, so if you have any questions on the previous presentations, then you can just type in app.yrons.org and you will be able to ask them and hopefully receive a fulfilling answer by the presenters. So now we wait. Oh, yes. Yes? Yes, I believe so. One moment. Yeah. Yes, of course. Yes, and also you may ask as many questions as you like. We have plenty of time, so I think we might have the time to answer all of them. So you have to type in app.YRoNS.org, and then I believe it should be easy to find. Yes. Miket. Oh, oké, jó. Ó, értem, oké. Akkor bemondom ezt is. Okay, and also if you have any difficulty finding the place where you can ask questions, then you can just say them out loud, tell it to us, and then we will write them in so that it is visible for everybody. Yeah. Cool. Oh, so we have our very first question, which is addressed to the presenters of the presentation about invisible ink. And the question is, are these the only types of ink, or are there any others? So may please raise your hands, the presenters. Thank you. And if you'd be so kind to answer the question, that would be great. You can also stand up.
There are many invisible ink, but we just chose those 6.
Thank you. I hope that answers it. Okay. So the next one is to the presenters of Trash to Treasure. What will you do with the rest of the electrical components which does not contain gold? Could the presenters please raise their hands? Okay, thank you. Yeah, you should answer.
So yeah, you can use the rest of, so you mean the part which is not gold or copper, but what is left from the membrane, yeah. Yeah, you can throw it into your, in Germany it's the yellow trash bin, but mostly you will just melt it down and we use it in kind of, for example, to make water bottles or something like that.
Thank you, that was a really nice answer. So, next, also to the presenters of Trash to Treasure, will the chemicals used to extract the gold pose a threat to the environment? Yeah. Would you like to answer?
Yeah, they could treat the environment, but we did it in a secure space, so nothing would get harmed or is harmed here.
Thank you. Next. Okay. Oh, this is quite a long one. So, the question is addressed to the presenters on emojication. In some cultures and places around the world, the meanings of certain emojis are different. Also, sometimes common emojis having few meanings, though similar meanings, are misinterpreted. What can be done in order to use emojis for general communication in such cases? Could the presenters...
So unfortunately,
oh yes, they are not here.
The Russians aren't here, but we
yes.
will get the answer for tomorrow.
Yes, so okay. So the questions that are asked in regard to the presentations of the Russian delegation will be answered tomorrow since they sadly cannot be here in person. But we will make sure to get the answers since this was a very well thought out and I believe a very good question. So yeah, next one. Okay, so to the presenters of Will Caffeine Help You Focus, were you a part of the experiment? This is such a fun question. Could you please, yes, raise your hands.
So we organized the experiment, but we were not a part of the experiment itself, so we did not take the tests and such.
Thank you. I think that makes quite a lot of sense, actually. Yeah. Next one. Okay, so to the presenter of smart barricade systems, is it estimated how much one of these systems would cost? Yes, thank you.
So about the cost, I would say it will take 2,000, very little cost it would be there, as we will use it, the RFID sensor and other sensors. So mainly it would be about 5 to 10,000, I would say. ₹5 to 10,000 rupees only.
Thank you so much. Okay. These are all really great questions, by the way. You are doing really great. Biztosan még kérdés, miért nem vetítik ki? Kérdezd meg. Okay, so we have another question for Trash to Treasure. Gold has many general uses because of its property of being very less reactive. Would it be profitable to make gold nanoparticles as well, rather than only the more usable forms of gold? I will give you some time to kind of process the question and everything, because it is quite a long and complicated one. Yeah. Yes, thank you.
So yeah, very nice question, and yeah, we don't have a real answer for that. It's because you need to buy new chemicals. You can say how much it would be more profitable or not, depending on the amount you would make. So yeah.
Thank you. That's completely fine. It's all right. Okay. Kérdezd meg, Hanna, hogy van-e még? Kérdezd meg. Oh, I think we have a. So it's. Oh yes. So we have a question. Just would you like to ask it? Oh yeah. Okay. So you can stand up.
It's a question for Divanshi related to the ripeness of the fruits. So the pH standards are different among the fruits. So will your products contain something to like a chart to show the different standards between the fruits?
I'll give it to her. Thank you. Very great question.
So in most cases, the pH level remains pretty much the same for ripe fruits. It's usually between 3 to 5. And for that, I said that there were some reference charts which would, it's very generalized because obviously there are a lot of fruits. You can't write down everything. But it's pretty generalized, and it's the same for, I would say, 99% of the fruits. The pH level remains the same. Like in case of ripeness, it's usually between 3 to 5. And for that, I have the reference chart in the kit. So I think that's, yeah.
Okay. Yes, thank you so much. Oh, there's another question. Thank you.
It was about the caffeine presentation. I had a question. Perhaps you show it, and I could not see it because it was going fast. So do you compare the less sleep people with and without caffeine? Was the time of reaction faster with caffeine? If you compare the population under 6 hours of sleep with and without caffeine.
Okay, thank you. Which one of us?
We did indeed show it. So it was a negative number on our charts, which means that they did worse on that test after caffeine than they did on the one before, and they also did worse on the one with placebo. So they pretty much just, there are a lot of uncertainty about the results. No, not on them. Or it makes them worse on the reaction test, but not a positive effect, at least.
Thank you so much. Okay, so this is a unique question for sure. I believe it is addressed to the smart barricade system presenter. Are there many people who ignore the red light in India? It is the question. Thank you.
No, it's not. Many. It's not.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah. Okay, next one. So, accident prevention on mountainous roads. Do you think your system will one day be integrated in normal traffic in the world? Is the question? Yes.
Yeah, I think so, because I have developed this prototype to increase awareness among the governments, and it is in process. I am looking forward to patent this idea.
Thank you. That's really nice. Okay. Okay, so I think that if there are no further questions, then we can hold a short break. You have all done extremely well, and yes, we will wait for your teachers in the meantime. And afterwards, I will announce the next program. Thank you.